In 1963, a man knocked down a wall in his basement and accidentally discovered an entire city. 18 levels deep, built to house 20,000 people. And nobody, to this day, knows who built it. That city is real. It exists right now beneath the plains of Turkey, and it is one of 7 ancient underground cities so advanced that modern engineers still cannot explain how they were constructed. These weren't caves, they weren't tunnels. They were cities, with ventilation systems that still function today. Stone doors weighing half a ton engineered to seal from the inside. Water systems that could be cut off level by level to stop enemies from poisoning the supply. Built thousands of years ago by people who, according to every history textbook ever written, shouldn't have been capable of any of it. 7 cities, 7 impossible engineering achievements, and one discovery so recent and so explosive that governments are actively blocking excavation permits to stop the world from finding out what's underneath. Let's go underground. The city beneath Derinkuyu has a name that translates simply as Deep Well. But what lies beneath that name is anything but simple. The man who knocked down that basement wall in 1963 had no idea what he was walking into. Neither did the archaeologists who followed him, because the deeper they went, the more impossible it became. The ventilation system alone stopped engineers cold. 52 shafts, carved from the surface down through all 18 levels, each one perfectly angled to create airflow through the entire complex. The system was so precisely designed that it still works today. You can stand in the lowest level of Derinkuyu, 280 feet underground, and breathe fresh air. 3,000 years later. The water system went beyond simple wells. Each level maintained completely independent cisterns, and the system was designed so that if upper levels were compromised, lower levels could survive for months on their own supply alone. Engineers who have studied the hydraulics estimate the design would sustain 20,000 people underground for over a year without resupply. That is not accidental engineering. That is deliberate strategic planning at a level that rivals modern military architecture. The stables on the first level were positioned there intentionally, the body heat of the livestock warming the levels above. The communal kitchens cooked for the entire population in coordinated shifts. The chapels, schools, and wineries suggest a population that wasn't hiding in fear. They were living, fully, underground. But here is the detail that haunts researchers most. We mentioned nobody knows who built this, but the theories go deeper than most people realize. The leading theories range from the Hittites around 1600 BCE to early Christian communities fleeing Roman persecution. But some researchers believe it predates both, that the original structure was carved by an unknown civilization thousands of years before either group existed, that Derinkuyu wasn't built by the people who used it. It was inherited. There are no founding records, no inscriptions claiming ownership, no historical documents of any kind describing its construction. Just the city itself, silent, functional, and completely unexplained. And one more detail most people never hear. Derinkuyu is connected by underground tunnels to at least 6 other subterranean cities in the region. One tunnel stretches nearly 9 kilometers to a city called Kaymakli. An underground network, connecting multiple cities, spanning miles of carved rock beneath the Turkish plains. Only half of Derinkuyu has ever been excavated. The Turkish government restricts full access. Whatever is in the other half is still down there, waiting. Most people associate underground cities with the ancient world, with Egypt, with Turkey, with civilizations lost to time. Nobody expects to find one in northern France. But beneath the quiet village of Naours, a village so ordinary that most French people have never heard of it, lies a network of tunnels and chambers that has been hiding one of Europe's most extraordinary secrets for nearly 2,000 years. The mouches of Naours. Over 300 rooms, 28 galleries, several kilometers of tunnels, carved entirely by hand into the soft chalk bedrock beneath the village. Large enough to shelter 3,000 people. With stables for livestock, chapels, bakeries with working ovens, wells, everything needed to sustain an entire population underground for months at a time. Originally carved as a limestone quarry as far back as the 3rd century, it was expanded over the following centuries into a full underground refuge. As waves of invasion swept across northern France, Romans, Vikings, warring kingdoms, the people of Naours went underground. During the 100 Years' War, civilians hid here from English armies. During the wars of religion, communities sheltered here from persecution. During the 30 Years' War, entire villages disappeared underground for months at a time. And then in 1916, during the First World War, Allied soldiers discovered the tunnels while stationed nearby. They carved their names, their regiments, and their hometowns into the chalk walls. Over 2,000 Australian soldiers left their mark, alongside British, American, French, Irish, and Scottish soldiers, men from across the world leaving evidence of their presence in a tunnel system that had already been sheltering people for 1,700 years. Some of those soldiers died in the trenches above within weeks of carving their names below. The tunnels survived both world wars. The names are still there. What makes Naours remarkable isn't just the engineering, it's the continuity. A refuge carved in the 3rd century that was still being used in the 20th. A place people kept returning to across 1,700 years of conflict because it worked. And most of the world has never heard of it. In the desert canyons of southern Jordan, hidden between rose-red sandstone cliffs, lies a city that was home to 20,000 people at its height. You've seen the treasury, the iconic facade carved directly into the cliff face, the one from Indiana Jones. But what most people don't know is that the building you see is just the entrance. 85% of Petra is still underground, still unexcavated, still unknown. The Nabatean people built Petra over 2,000 years ago in the middle of one of the most inhospitable environments on Earth. A desert canyon with almost no natural water supply, surrounded by enemies, cut off from trade routes. And yet they built a city that thrived for centuries. Because they solved the water problem in a way that still impresses engineers today. An elaborate hydraulic system, channels, pipes, dams, and cisterns carved directly into the rock, collected every drop of rainwater and flash floodwater that entered the canyon. They built terracotta pipes, settling tanks to filter sediment, pressurized systems to push water uphill. In a desert, 2,000 years ago, without modern engineering tools. The system was so effective it supported public fountains, gardens, and elaborate bathhouses in the middle of a desert. And then Petra was abandoned. Around the 7th century, the population simply left. The city was swallowed by sand and forgotten by the outside world for over 1,000 years. In 1812, a Swiss explorer named Johann Ludwig Burckhardt disguised himself as an Arab pilgrim to gain access to the canyon. What he found there shocked the Western world. An entire city, perfectly preserved, hidden in plain sight. But here is what almost nobody talks about. In 2024, archaeologists using ground-penetrating radar discovered something beneath the treasury, the most famous building in Petra. A hidden tomb, completely sealed, never opened. Inside, they found 12 complete human skeletons, funerary objects, and a ceramic vessel, its shape so closely matching the Holy Grail prop from Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade that the discovery made headlines worldwide. The film was shot at Petra in 1989. 25 years later, archaeologists found the real thing buried directly beneath the scene where it was filmed. 85% of Petra is still underground. Nobody knows what else is down there. Derinkuyu is not alone. Just 9 kilometers away from where that Turkish man knocked down his basement wall lies another underground city, older, wider, and in many ways even more impossible. Kaymakli. Built as far back as the 8th century BC, 8 levels carved directly into the soft volcanic rock of the Cappadocian Plateau. At its peak, it housed 3,500 people. But here is what makes Kaymakli different from Derinkuyu and from every other underground city on this list. It is the widest underground city ever discovered on Earth. Not the deepest, not the largest in terms of population, the widest. The tunnels and chambers spread horizontally across an area so vast that only 4 of the 8 levels have ever been fully explored. The other 4 are still down there, unmapped, unexcavated, unknown. What we do know is extraordinary enough. Stables for animals on the first level, positioned there deliberately so the body heat of the livestock would warm the levels above. Communal kitchens where food was cooked in massive quantities for the entire population. Churches carved directly into rock. A graveyard underground. Storage rooms so numerous and so well organized that archaeologists believe they indicate a level of economic planning far beyond what the official historical record attributes to this region. And the same rolling stone doors as Derinkuyu, circular, weighing hundreds of pounds, movable only from the inside. But Kaymakli has something Derinkuyu doesn't. A tunnel. Researchers believe Kaymakli is connected to Derinkuyu by an underground passage stretching approximately 9 miles through solid rock. A tunnel linking 2 massive underground cities beneath the plains of central Turkey. If confirmed, it would mean the ancient builders of Cappadocia didn't just construct individual underground cities, they built an underground network, a connected system of subterranean settlements spanning miles of carved rock beneath the surface. The tunnel has never been fully explored. Nobody knows what's in it. Kaymakli wasn't abandoned in ancient times either. Records show it was still being used as recently as the early 20th century, when Greek Christians fleeing persecution took refuge in its tunnels in 1909. A city carved in the 8th century BC, still providing shelter in 1909 AD. 2,700 years of continuous use. And most of it is still underground. In 1992, a farmer in the Zhejiang province of eastern China had a theory. Local legend held that the ponds near his village were bottomless. Nobody had ever tested it. He bought a hydraulic pump. He pumped for 17 days. What emerged from beneath the water stopped him cold. Not a natural cave, not a geological formation. A room, hand-carved, perfectly constructed, with walls, pillars, gutters, pools, and a staircase. He pumped another pond, another room, then another, and another, and another. Beneath 5 ponds in a small Chinese village lay 24 enormous hand-carved underground chambers, each one descending 30 meters into solid rock, each one containing rooms, bridges, drainage systems, and stone pillars supporting the ceiling, covering a total area of 30,000 square meters. Scientists and archaeologists from China, Japan, the United States, Poland, and Singapore descended on the site. Engineers examined the construction. Geologists analyzed the rock. Historians searched every archive in China. Nobody could explain it. Not one aspect of it. The quantity of rock removed from those caves is estimated at nearly 1 million cubic meters. To excavate that volume by hand would require 1,000 people working day and night for 6 years. No record of that project exists anywhere, not in imperial archives, not in local chronicles, not in folktales, not in a single surviving document from any dynasty or period of Chinese history. A construction project requiring 1,000 people working for 6 years, and nobody wrote it down. That is not an oversight. That does not happen. Every surface of every cave, walls, ceiling, pillars, is covered in identical parallel chisel marks, precisely spaced, precisely angled, uniform across all 24 caves. Here is the part that engineers cannot explain. The workers carving the bottom of one cave could not see into the adjacent cave. The walls between them are only 50 centimeters thick in places, yet every cave is perfectly parallel to every other cave. The alignment is exact. To achieve that precision without being able to see what the adjacent workers were doing, without modern surveying equipment, requires measurement tools so advanced that we have never found a single one at the site. No tools were found at all, anywhere. 1 million cubic meters of excavated rock, and no evidence of where it went. No tools, no records, no explanation. Just 24 perfect underground chambers beneath a small Chinese village that the world forgot existed for over 2,000 years. China calls them the ninth wonder of the ancient world. The rest of the world has barely heard of them. Derinkuyu, Kaymakli, 2 cities, 2 impossible engineering achievements buried beneath the plains of central Turkey. But here is what nobody tells you. They are not alone. Beneath the region of Cappadocia in central Turkey, archaeological surveys have identified evidence of over 200 underground cities. Not tunnels, not caves, cities, with living quarters, churches, stables, ventilation systems, and defensive stone doors. 200 of them. Only 36 have been excavated. The other 164 are still underground. Most have never been entered by a modern human being. And the scale of what those 36 cities could hold, even without the ones we haven't found yet, is staggering. Researchers estimate the known Cappadocian underground cities had the combined capacity to house over 1 million people. 1 million. The entire region of Cappadocia today has a population of roughly 500,000 people above ground. The ancient underground network was built to house twice that number. Why would any civilization build underground capacity for a population twice the size of everyone living in the region? Nobody has answered that question. The cities are connected. Tunnels have been found linking multiple settlements, some stretching miles through solid rock. Researchers believe the full network may have been even more interconnected than we currently know, a vast underground civilization spanning the entire Cappadocian plateau. Right now, today, people are living in villages above ground in Cappadocia completely unaware that they are sitting directly on top of ancient underground cities. Homeowners occasionally break through basement walls during renovations and find tunnels. Farmers hit ventilation shafts while digging. Construction crews uncover entrances nobody knew existed. Every accidental discovery adds to the network. Every new entrance found suggests the full scale of what's underground is larger than anyone previously estimated. And the Turkish government controls access to all of it. Most of the network is restricted, closed to researchers, closed to archaeologists, closed to the public. 164 underground cities sitting in the dark beneath central Turkey. Sealed, restricted, and waiting. Every entry on this list has been verified, excavated, studied, confirmed. This last one is different. In March 2025, a team of Italian and Scottish researchers made an announcement that sent shockwaves through the global archaeological community and immediately divided it. Professor Corrado Malanga from the University of Pisa and Dr. Filippo Biondi from the University of Strathclyde announced that using a cutting-edge radar imaging technology called synthetic aperture radar, they had discovered something beneath the pyramids of Giza. Not a chamber, not a tunnel. A city. 8 massive vertical shafts descending over 2,000 feet straight down beneath the Khafra pyramid. Each shaft surrounded by spiral pathways. At the bottom, two enormous cube-shaped structures, each measuring 260 feet per side. Above them, 5 multi-level complexes connected by geometric passageways stretching beneath all 3 pyramids of the Giza plateau. "The pyramids are the tip of the iceberg," Biondi declared. "The substance is below." The response from mainstream archaeology was immediate and hostile. Dr. Zahi Hawass, Egypt's most prominent archaeologist and former head of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, called the findings completely wrong with absolutely no scientific basis. He stated the Egyptian government never gave these researchers permission to work at the site. Radar expert Professor Lawrence Conyers from the University of Denver called the claims a huge exaggeration, stating the technology used cannot penetrate anywhere near that deep into the earth. The findings have not been published in a peer-reviewed scientific journal. They were announced via a YouTube press conference. Those are legitimate criticisms. They matter. But here is what the skeptics have not explained. The researchers ran their scans using 4 completely independent satellites, operated by 4 different organizations in 4 different countries. All 4 returned identical results. All 4 satellites gave exactly the same results, Biondi said. That is really amazing. We cannot announce anything without these basic scientific methods. 4 independent instruments, 4 identical readings, beneath the most studied archaeological site on Earth. The Egyptian government has been asked for excavation permission. They have not responded. Whether this is the most significant archaeological discovery of the 21st century or an elaborate misinterpretation of satellite data, the only way to find out is to dig. And nobody is being allowed to dig. Beneath the most famous structures on Earth, structures we have studied for 200 years, something is there. Or isn't. And we are not being allowed to find out which. 7 cities. A man renovating his basement finds an 18-level city built for 20,000 people. Monks carve a refuge in 3rd century France that soldiers are still sheltering in 1,700 years later. A hydraulic engineer civilization builds public fountains in the middle of a desert and then vanishes. The widest underground city on Earth sits connected to the deepest by a tunnel nobody has fully explored. Farmers drain 5 ponds and find 1 million cubic meters of missing rock and zero explanation. 200 underground cities sit beneath a region in Turkey, most of them sealed, restricted, and waiting. And beneath the most studied structures on Earth, something is there that nobody will let us verify. 7 cities, 7 times the same pattern. Advanced engineering that shouldn't exist. Populations that shouldn't have been capable of building it. Records that were either never kept or deliberately destroyed. And governments, ancient and modern, that seem remarkably uninterested in finding out what's actually down there. Here is the question that ties all 7 together. Why underground? Every civilization on this list went to extraordinary lengths, carving millions of cubic meters of rock by hand, engineering ventilation systems that still work today, building cities that could house hundreds of thousands of people, to put their most sophisticated work beneath the surface. Not on top of a hill, not in a valley, underground. Hiding from enemies is one explanation, but it doesn't account for the scale. You don't carve 1 million cubic meters of rock to hide from a raiding party. You don't build a city for 1 million people to use temporarily. You don't install ventilation systems sophisticated enough to still function 3,000 years later unless you plan to be down there for a very long time. Something drove these civilizations underground. Something serious enough to justify the most enormous construction projects in human history. And whatever it was, it has been almost completely erased from the historical record. Not forgotten, erased. The difference matters. Things get forgotten gradually. Knowledge fades, languages die, civilizations collapse and take their records with them. But when 1 million cubic meters of excavated rock leaves no trace anywhere, not in the ground, not in documents, not in folk memory, that is not forgetting. That is erasure. When 200 cities sit beneath a region and the government restricts access to most of them, that is not preservation. That is control. When the most significant potential archaeological discovery of the 21st century sits beneath the most studied site on Earth and nobody is allowed to dig, that is not caution. That is a decision. 7 underground cities, 7 impossible achievements, 7 times the same question. What are they not telling us? Ancient Cipher exists to ask that question. Subscribe, because the next video goes somewhere even deeper. The cipher is just beginning to be decoded.